this is now the contagion. This is again once again brought in Prince Andrew, Peter Mandelson, Michael Wolff, New York Times journalists, all of these people that Epstein, even long after he was convicted for his first alleged crimes, first convicted for crimes, and then still surrounded by allegations of other crimes, was still plugged in an incredible way to the very heart of the American and global elite. And that's where I think the real story is from this one, is actually quite how many people, even after he'd done time, were still colluding with Epstein because they all basically hated Trump.
Thanks so much for talking about this, Harry. It's an interesting set of documents. Do you want to start with Trump, or should we start with Andrew? In fact, let me pose that as a question to you, Harry. Who is more concerned this morning after the release of these documents, Andrew or Trump?
Well, in the last hour or so, Donald Trump has ended the shutdown. He signed the legislation into place that ended the 43-day closure of the U.S. government, which I think we need to see everything that we've learned in the last 24 hours in the context of that. For the first time, I can remember being here for many months, Donald Trump didn't take questions from the media tonight. He kicked out the press pretty quick after signing that landmark bill, which shows you they're still kind of struggling with how to deal with this situation. So to put it into a bit of context, this was a Democrat-led assault in the last 24 hours. The Democrats, basically, they're not in control of Congress, but they do still sit on that all-powerful Congressional Oversight Committee, which means they get to see all of these troves of documents that have been handed over by the Department of Justice, by the Epstein estate, and they can essentially cherry-pick their way through them. And they found really 3 or 4 pretty sensational emails between Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, about Donald Trump. The most infamous one being the dog that hasn't barked email, which basically is Epstein and Maxwell not long ago basically working out that Donald Trump may have been the one that screwed them over. It may have been the one that was cooperating with federal authorities and law authorities in Florida to help prosecute Jeffrey Epstein. Now, on the surface of that, Donald Trump doesn't come out of it too badly, in the fact that we knew he had a relationship with him. He knew that he kicked out Epstein from Mar-a-Lago in 2006 or 2007, I believe it was, quote, for being a creep. Now, being a creep and knowing whether he had knowledge of quite what a creep, and creep is an understatement for the convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell, is where this going to come down to. That's going to come down to political lines.
So the email you talk about, I just want to read it out here. I want you to realise that that dog hasn't barked is Trump. Victim, which was initially redacted, spent hours at my house with him. Well, that victim looks like it is then written as Virginia, so Virginia Giuffre. But Virginia Giuffre wrote a book where she said Trump didn't do anything bad with her or to her. And so I wonder, if these people are speaking frankly about what Trump did or didn't do, and the most they can say is he spent time with a woman who has subsequently on the record said he didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. You took the words right out of my mouth. The fact that the Democrats on the committee felt the need to censor that, this is not someone that's, his privacy is in doubt. Very sadly, she's no longer alive. Everyone knows that Virginia Giuffre was, at the center of this scandal by no choice of her own. The fact is that hours after the Democrats published that redacted version of the email, the Republicans on the committee came out and said, it's Virginia. And the reason that they, I think, suggest that the Democrats were slightly trying to muddy the water by redacting that name was to try and make this look worse than it is, which gets to the nub of the issue, which is actually this isn't quite the smoking gun people wanted it to be. Now, the Republicans came out a couple of hours later, released 20,000 more documents. People are still, newsrooms across the world right now are still trawling through them. I suspect in your very building, Stig, there are people awake right now trawling through those documents. And what this has done actually is this is now the contagion. This is again, once again brought in Prince Andrew, Peter Mandelson, Michael Wolff, New York Times journalists, all of these people that Epstein, even long after he was convicted for his first alleged crimes, well, first convicted for crimes, and then still surrounded by allegations of other crimes, was still plugged in an incredible way to the very heart of the American and global elite. And that's where I think the real story is from this one is actually quite how many people, even after he'd done time, were still colluding with Epstein because they all basically hated Trump.
And you've got, I mean, you're the one who did the interview with Mandelson, which led to his defenestration as ambassador. This bit of information adds onto the portrayal that he said he ditched Epstein and he didn't.
He was still engaged in conversation via email in 2016. That is a long time after he alleged he'd cut ties initially. Peter Mandelson said there's going to be more embarrassing things to come. But, we didn't quite realize it was that late. For Prince Andrew, the Andrew formerly known as Prince, Mr. Mountbatten Windsor, again, for connoisseurs, for journalists, for people that have been following this story for many years, there's an extraordinary email in that cache that's been published today that shows the first moment that Andrew realizes he's about to be dragged into this global firestorm, and he is begging. He is begging Epstein and he is begging Ghislaine Maxwell to say, please say whatever, please say something, please don't drag me into this. I know nothing about this. When actually, well, he was up to his neck clearly in it. And then the emails between Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein saying, Andrew is asking me, the palace are asking me to distance myself from you. And you really are seeing how the sausages were made and quite how dishonest, frankly, Andrew was being publicly all the way through, not just in that Newsnight interview, but all the way through with his mealy-mouthed denials about his relationship with Epstein, when behind the scenes, he was emailing him saying, get me out of this one, buddy.
And also, it looks like Epstein and Maxwell are confirming the picture of him with Giuffre, that famous picture, isn't fake because they talk about it as a real thing.
No, absolutely. I mean, you and I are old enough to remember then when sources close to Andrew, friends of Andrew, should we call them, were attempting to convince Sunday newspapers week in, week out that photo may have been doctored, and they were lies. It was clear. I mean, it's pretty much confirmed that, from reading between the lines of those emails, that it was Epstein himself that was holding the camera. And without getting too precious about it, you had basically palace, officials, not necessarily Buckingham Palace, but people linked to Andrew, who were probably on the taxpayer dime, indirectly or otherwise, lying to the media for years about that. Again, that's what I mean about it. It's the collateral damage of they came for Trump, but they've ended up actually hitting many other targets with this release. And you know what? This isn't even the end of it. This is just 20,000 documents. There are so many more. The White House, the Department of Justice are all promising the House Oversight Committee even more. This is just the stuff they've managed to go through so far. This story ain't going anywhere, and that's where I think it does get tricky for the White House, because if in most punters' eyes, in most punters' ears, it's just all you're hearing is Trump, Epstein, Trump, Epstein, Trump, Epstein. And Trump was the one that made it a campaign stop. He made it a rally moment each time, being like, "We're going to release the Epstein files." They brought in the MAGA influencers early on in the second administration to say, look, we're going to publish this all. Pam Bondi said, I've got the client list, it's sitting on my desk, and they had to row back massively saying, well, actually it doesn't exist. So they've slightly made a hostage of their own fortune. But if they haven't got the smoking gun now, we all know that Donald Trump had a relationship and knew Jeffrey Epstein. I don't think that knockout blow is coming if they haven't found it yet.
So interesting, Harry. There's an also, and also, as you say, more will emerge. More will emerge from these documents. More will emerge from other documents as they're released over the course of the days and weeks to come. Great to speak to you as ever. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Amy.